The need for divine revelations. My divine teaching is not destined only for the spirit. No, it must come as well to the human heart, so that the spiritual as well as the corporeal parts come to harmonize. The divine word is destined to illuminate the understanding and sensitize the heart of man, and the essence that exists in that word is destined to sustain and elevate the spirit. For the life of man to be complete, he unquestionably needs spiritual bread. Just as he works and struggles for material sustenance, man does not live by bread alone. I told you in the second era, and my words are still true, for humanity could never do without spiritual sustenance, without being overwhelmed on earth by illnesses, pain, darkness, calamities, misery, and death. Materialists may say that humanity is living solely from what the earth and nature offer, without need to go looking for something spiritual that sustains it or that strengthens it along its journey. But I must tell you, the life is neither perfect nor complete, for it is an existence that lacks what is essential, which is spirituality. In old times, I have manifested myself to men in a simple form so that you could understand me. I have always done so in a way within reach of your understanding and your hearts. I have descended to you to give you thereby an example of humility, coming to your humble life to raise you to a better life. This is the fulfillment of the word that I gave you in the second era, when Jesus gave thanks to his Father for having hidden his wisdom from the wise and educated, and having revealed it instead to the humble. Yes, my people, for those you call wise puff themselves up and seek to humiliate the humble, teaching them only what they consider to be the crumbs of knowledge that they receive from me, while the poor, the humble, who do know the necessities that life presents and its privations, when they come to possess something, feel that it is too much for them and share it with others. Now I add that when the greedy turn generous and the arrogant become humble, in that instant they come to enjoy that which I reserve to those who practice virtue. For my love is not partial, it is universal for all my children. The divine revelations without limits, that which has come to illuminate the third era, is not my last teaching. The spiritual has no end. My law shines always like a divine sun in all consciousness, in all consciences. Stagnancy and decadence are characteristic only of humans, and are always the result of vices, weaknesses, or uncontrolled passions. When humanity constructs its life on spiritual foundations and bears within itself the ideal of eternity inspired in it by my doctrine, it will have found the road of progress and perfection. I will never again leave the path of its evolution. You are greatly mistaken if you believe that I waited until now to inform you of the spiritual life. Once again, I say to you that my divine teaching began when the first human was born. It is not an exaggeration when I tell you that my lessons began when the formation of the spirits before the world was created. When humanity believed that only what it could see with its eyes existed, and did not know even the shape of the world it lived in, it conceived of a God limited to what its eyes could see. But as humanity's mind discovered mystery after mystery, the universe kept expanding before their eyes, and the greatness and omnipotence of God continue to grow before the marveling intelligence of man. For that reason, in this time, I have had to bring you a teaching in accordance with your evolution. But I ask you, is it memorial? Is it material science that my revelation encompasses? No, the science that I teach you speaks of an existence beyond the nature you have seen and examined for so long. My revelation uncovers the road that raises the spirit to a dwelling place from where it can discover, know, and understand all. Does it seem impossible, or at least strange to you, that God communicates spiritually with men, or that the spiritual world communicates with and manifests itself in your lives, and that the unknown worlds and dwelling places communicate with you? Would you want your level knowledge to remain stagnant and for the Father to never reveal anything more than He already has? Do not be tied to your routine, nor limit the learning of your spirit. Today you may deny, struggle against, and persecute my spiritual doctrine, but I know that tomorrow you will yield to the truth. All divine revelation has been fought against and denied when it appeared, but in the end the light has prevailed. Humanity has also been skeptical of the discoveries of science, but in the end has had to yield to reality. When from the hearts of humanity the temple of the Holy Spirit is elevated to the infinite, there in its bosom will arise new revelations, which will become greater as the spirits ascend farther. How could you think that while descending to you, I could have neglected the other nations, given that all are my children? Do you believe that some are far from me or outside me, even though my spirit is universal and includes all that has been created, all lives, and is sustained by me? It is for that reason that my universal ray has descended upon the entire globe, and the Spirit has received my influence in this and in other worlds, for I have come to save all my creatures. My manifestation through the spokesman is intended by me to be temporary, a brief period of preparation that will serve these people as a standard, as law and principle, to testify and spread this truth, and to announce to the world the advent of the third era. Just as my manifestation through human understanding was intended to be as fleeting as lightning, so too was it foreseen that some multitudes would be called to witness and receive this revelation. In contrast, the communication from spirit to spirit shall reach all the human species, without limitation of time, for that means of seeking me, of receiving me, of prayer, of listening to and feeling me, belongs to all eternity. The manifestation of the presence of God in man. I wish to convert you into my disciples so that you learn to feel me like the children of my spirit that you are. Why should you not feel my presence inside yourselves, since you are of my very essence? If you are part of me, you do not feel me because you are not conscious of it, because you lack spirituality and preparation, and such signs and sensations as you receive you attribute to material causes. That is why I tell you that although I am with you, you do not perceive my presence. Now I ask you, is it true that if you are part of me, it is natural for you to feel me within your being? Is it true that meditating on this your spirit comes to merge with mine? I have come to uncover for you the real greatness that should exist in every man, for you have confused yourselves, and wishing to be great on earth, have grown smaller spiritually. I do not wish to hear you say, any longer. Lord, why are you far from me? Why don't you hear me? And why do I feel alone on this journey? Beloved people, I never abandon my children. It is you who distance yourselves from me, because you have lacked faith and because you have rejected me and closed to me the gates of your heart. I do not wish you to feel as though I am far from you. For that reason, I have told you that all will feel me, all will touch me. Your spirit will hear my voice, and spiritually you will behold my presence. This is how I wish your spirits to be joined to mine throughout eternity, for that is my will. My peace be with you. Chapter 24. Spiritual and Material Creation. The creation of spiritual beings. Before the worlds, before any creature or any matter came to life, my divine spirit existed. However, being all, I felt in myself an enormous emptiness, for I was like a king without subjects, or a master without disciples, and for that reason, I conceived the idea of creating beings in my likeness, to whom I would dedicate all of my life, whom I would love so deeply and intensely that when the moment arrived, I would not hesitate to offer them my blood on the cross. Do not be confused when I tell you that before you existed, I loved you already. Yes, my much loved children. The Divine Spirit was filled with love in spite of the fact that none but He existed. Nothing had been created, nothing surrounded the Divine Being, and nonetheless He loved and felt Himself to be Father. Whom did He love? Of whom did He feel Father? Of all the beings and of all the creatures that would spring from Him, and whose strength was latent in His Spirit. In that Spirit was all science, all the elements, all nature, and all principles. He was both eternity and time. In Him were the past, the present, and the future, even before the beginning of the lives of worlds and beings. That divine's inspiration was made reality by the infinite force of divine love, and life began. So that could be called Father, He brought forth from His bosom spirits, creatures similar to Himself in divine attributes, and that was your beginning. In that way, you sprang into spiritual life. Love was the reason for having created you. I had a divine yearning to share my power with someone, and love was also the reason for having endowed you with free will. I wanted to feel loved by my children, not by law, but through a spontaneous feeling which would sprout freely from your spirits. Each spirit sprang from a pure thought of the divinity, and therefore the spirits are perfect works of the Creator. The role of great spirits in the creative work. Elijah is the great spirit that is at the right hand of God, and who in his humility calls himself the servant of God, and through whose conduit and through the conduits of other great spirits, I move the spiritual universe and carry out great and elevated designs. Yes, my disciples, in my service, I have a multitude of great spirits that direct creation. The providential thoughts of God. Listen, disciples, before I created you, I already existed, and your spirits were a part of me. However, I did not want you to inherit my kingdom without making yourselves deserving. I did not want you to possess that which was in existence without knowing who had created you, nor did I want you to proceed without direction, without a destination, and without an ideal. That is why I gave you a conscience to be your guide. I granted you free will so that your deeds would have true value before me. I gave you a spirit so that it would always yearn to elevate itself toward that which is bright and pure. I gave you a body so that through the heart you would be sensitive to the good and beautiful, and so that it would serve as a crucible for constant testing and as an instrument to inhabit the material world. The creation of material worlds for the spiritual beings, when for the first time space was illuminated with the presence of spirits, these spirits uttering their first words and taking their first steps like babes, and not having the elevation nor the strength to sustain themselves in highly evolved spiritual mansions, felt the need for a support, a hold in order to feel strong. They were given a material form and a material world, and in their new state, they proceeded to acquire experience and knowledge. The universe was filled with beings, and in all the love, power, and wisdom of the Father was manifest. The bosom of the Lord has been like an endless fountain of life since the instant in which He deigned that atoms might unite to form bodies and integrate beings. Spiritual life existed first. First were the spirits and then material nature. As it was decided that many spiritual creatures would take corporeal form to inhabit material worlds, all was prepared in advance, so that the children of the Lord would find all in readiness. He sowed the road his children were to travel with blessings, flooded the universe with life, filled the road of man with beauty, and placed in him a divine beam of light, the conscience and spirit, forming them in this way from love, intelligence, strength, will, and conscience. Yet all that exists was wrapped in his strength and shown its destiny. Thus, when the Father formed the world and gave it as its destiny to be a place of atonement, he knew already that his children would have weaknesses and stumble on their journey, that it would be necessary that there be a dwelling where they might take the first steps toward regeneration and perfection. The creation of human beings. Listen, God the Supreme Being created you in His image and likeness, not in the material form that you have, but in the virtue with which your spirit is endowed, similar to those of the Father. How pleasing it has been to your vanity to believe yourselves the image of your Creator. You believe yourselves to be the most evolved creatures created by God, and you are in grave error to assume that the universe was created only for you. With how much ignorance you call yourselves the kings of creation. Understand that not even the earth is created only for men. In the endless ladder of the divine creation, there exists an infinite number of spirits who are evolving in fulfillment of the law of God. The purpose contained in all this, which as men you would be unable to understand, even if you wish to, are great and perfect, as are all the designs of the Father. Yet truly I say, you are neither the greatest nor the smallest of the creatures of the Father. You were created, and at that instant your spirit took life from the Almighty, bearing within it as many attributes as were necessary to fulfill a delicate mission within eternity. Within the spirit of man, which is my masterpiece, I have placed my divine light. I have cultivated it with infinite love as a grand gardener cultivates the favorite plant of his garden. I have placed you in this mansion where nothing will be lacking for your livelihood, so that you will know me and know yourselves. I have given you power in your spirit to feel the life of the hereafter and senses in your body so that you can enjoy and perfect yourselves. I have given you this world so that in it you will commence to take your first steps. And in this path of progress and perfection, you can experience the perfection of my law so that during your lifetime you can recognize and love me, and through your merits you can reach me. I have granted you the gift of freedom of will, and I have endowed you with a conscience. The first is for your freedom to develop within my laws, and the same second to be able to distinguish good from evil, so that it will tell you like a perfect judge whether you are complying or are at fault with my law. The conscience is light of my divine spirit, which never leaves from you at any moment. I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am peace and happiness, the eternal promise that you will be with me, and also the fulfillment of all my words. The memory of paradise. Those first men, they who were the fathers of humanity, preserved for a time the impression that their spirits brought from the spiritual valley, an impression of blessedness, peace, and delight that remained in them until the rise in their lives of the passions of the material form and the struggle to subsist. Yet I should tell you, although the spirit of those men did come from a mansion of light, it was not from one of the highest dwelling places, those to which you may come only by merit. Nonetheless, the state of innocence, peace, welfare, and health that those spirits preserved in their first steps were like a time of light, unforgettable, and of which testimony was given to their children, and by them to their descendants. The materialist minds of men, confusing the true meaning of that testimony, came to believe that the paradise in which the first men lived was an earthly paradise, not understanding that it was the spiritual state of those creatures. The nature of human beings. Spirit and matter are two distinct natures, from which your being is formed, and above both is the conscience. The first is the daughter of the light, the second proceeds from the earth. It is material. Both are in unity within one being, and they struggle between themselves guided by the conscience, in which you have the presence of God. This struggle up to now has been constant, but in the end, spirit and matter will fulfill in harmony the mission that my law indicates to each one. You may also picture the spirit as if it were a plant, and the body as the earth. The spirit, which has been planted in the body, grows, it elevates itself, being sustained by the trials and teachings which it receives throughout its human existence. The unity of the Creator with creation. The Spirit of God is like an infinite tree, in which the branches are the worlds and the leaves are the beings. If the sap is the same that runs through the trunk to all branches, and from these to the leaves, do you not believe that there is something eternal and holy that unites you among yourselves and merges you with the Creator? My spirit, which is universal, exists in all that I have created, whether that be of the spiritual or material nature. My work is in all, giving testimony of my perfection in each of its planes. My divine work embraces all, from the greatest and most perfect beings that dwell by my right, to the most imperceptibly small animal, to the vegetable and the mineral, and in the atoms and cells that form all creatures. In this I show you yet again the perfection of all created by me, from the material beings to the spirits that have already achieved perfection. That is my work. He who separates from the spiritual law which is a superior law, falls under the domination of the inferior of material laws, those of which human beings also know very little. But he who obeys and remains in harmony with the supreme law is above all rules that you call natural and feels and understands more than the one who only possesses knowledge which he has found in science or in the religions. Consider why Jesus surprised you with the deeds that you call miracles, but recognize the lessons of love that he gave you. Understand that there is nothing supernatural or contradictory within the divine, which vibrates in all creation. My peace be with you. Chapter 25, Nature. The laws of nature. I have taught you to see God as all, as the limitless marvel for your mental conception, as the prime mover of all movement and action in the universe, as life which manifests itself as much in a simple plant as in those worlds that spin by the millions in space without any of them disobeying the law that governed them. That law is I, your God. It is the law of continual evolution at which man marvels, giving him broad fields for the research that permits him to continue penetrating the secrets of nature. Understand that the law is the path devised by the love of the Supreme Creator to guide each one of his creatures. Meditate upon the life that surrounds you, composed of an infinite number of elements and organisms, and you will end up discovering that each body and each being proceed along a path or trajectory guided by a force apparently strange and mysterious. That force is the law that God has decreed to each one of his creatures. On analyzing these teachings, you will conclude by understanding that truly everything lives, moves, and grows under a supreme mandate. The presence of God in nature. Seek my presence in the works carried out by me, and at every step you will find me. Try to hear me, and you will hear me in the potent voice that rises from all created. For I find no difficulty in manifesting myself to the beings of creation. I manifest myself in a star or in the fury of a storm, as much as in the sweet light of the dawn. I make my voice heard in the melodious song of a bird, just as I express it in the aroma of flowers. And every expression of mine, each phrase, each work, speaks to you of love, of the fulfillment of my laws of justice and wisdom, and of the eternity of the Spirit. Nature is a creation of God and a parable for the spiritual. Many have made of nature their God, exalting it as a divine fountain of all that exists. But in truth I say to you, that this nature from whose bosom have emerged all beings, the forces and material elements which surround you, is not herself creator. It was conceived and created before by the divine Maker. It is not the cause nor the reason for life. Only I, your Father, am the beginning and the end, the Alpha and the Omega. All that surrounds and envelops you in this life is an image of the eternal life, a profound lesson explained through material forms and objects so that it may be understood. You have not yet plumbed the depths of this marvelous lesson, and men have again erred, for they have taken the life they live on earth as though it were eternity. They have been content to take from it its forms, renouncing all that is contained in this divine revelation, the essence and truth that is found in all creation. I do not come to deprive you, of anything that I have placed in nature, for the protection, health, sustenance, welfare, and joy of my children. Rather, I tell you that just as I offer the breath of the Spirit and invite you to breathe in and saturate yourself with spiritual emanations, do not ignore nor distance yourselves from all that nature offers you, for thereby you achieve harmony, health, and energy, and through them the complete fulfillment of the laws of life. The irrational beings are guided by instinct, which is its interior voice, its master, its guide. It is like a light that proceeds from its mother nature, and that lights the path that it must travel in life, a path that has also struggles and risk. From them take the harmony that each species live with, imitate the activity of those that are active. Take their examples of fidelity or of gratitude. They are examples that contain divine wisdom because they are creatures of mine, who have also sprung from me to surround and accompany you in your world and to participate in what I have placed on earth. The power of the children of God over nature. The elements will obey you when you comply with my law and when you ask it of me for the benefit of your brethren. Have I not taught you that even the unleashed elements can hear your prayer and become calm? If those elements obey my voice, why should they not obey the voice of the children of the Lord when they have become prepared? I have given the Spirit power over the material world so that it may overcome the trials and come to its destination. The struggle will be great. However, for since man has established on earth the only kingdom in which he believes, he has broken the harmony that ought to exist between him and that which surrounds him. From his proud throne, he has wanted to submit all things to the power of his science and impose his will over the elements and natural forces. But he has not accomplished this because long ago he broke his ties of friendship with the spiritual laws. Now, when I have told these people that the elements may obey them, there have been those who have not believed, and I say that they have had reason to doubt, for nature will never obey those who do not recognize it, and who profane and mock it. But he who knows how to live in accord with the laws of the spirit and matter, who lives in harmony with all that surrounds him, will identify himself with his Creator, making himself worthy of being served and obeyed by the elements, as corresponds to all children who know to obey their Father, the Creator of all that exists. I neither lie nor exaggerate when I tell you that the elements can hear your voice and respect and obey you. The history of Israel was written as a testimony to my truth, and in it you can find that time and again the people of God were recognized and respected by the forces and elements of nature. Why should you not be the same? By any chance do you believe that my power or my love for humanity has varied with the passage of time? No, you multitudes that hear this word, the light of my spirit that baits you, my power and my love are eternal and unchanging. Man and nature, but you must take care, O peoples of the earth, for if you continue to make use of my divine lessons to provoke the elements, if you apply the limited knowledge that you have toward evil, you will receive when you least expect it the painful and just response. You provoke the wind, the fire, the earth, the water, and all forces. You are well aware of what your harvest will be if you do not correct your activities in time, and be able to stop the elements unleashed because of your foolishness. I warn you that you are reaching the limit that my justice permits of your free will. You are greatly provoking nature. And since you are like children who feel themselves superior, this word comes as a warning of the danger in which you find yourselves. I told you that the leaf of the tree did not move without my will, and now I say to you that none of the elements obey any other will but mine. I also say to you that nature can be to men that what they wish it to be, a mother endowed with blessings, with caresses and nourishment, or an arid desert where hunger and thirst reign. It can be either a teacher of wise and infinite revelations about life, goodness, love, and eternity, or an unyielding judge in the face of profanation, disobedience, and the errors of men. Blessing them, I said to the first man, be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth, conquer it, and rule over the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, and over all creatures that move on the face of the earth. Yes, humanity, I created man so that he would be master and would have power over space, over waters, over all the earth, and the elements of creation. But behold, I have emphasized the term master because men, believing they rule the earth with their science, are truly slaves. Believing they dominate the forces of nature, become victims of their recklessness, ignorance, and lack of preparation. Human power and science have invaded the earth, the seas, and space, but their power and force are not in harmony with the power and force of nature, which express God's divine love and our life, wisdom, harmony, and perfection. Whereas humans' power, science, and their deeds are only filled with pride, selfishness, vanity, and wickedness. Do you see the unbalancing of the elements of nature and the twisting they have suffered? Do you realize how you are touched by the unleashed forces? It is because you have broken the harmony that exists between the spiritual and material lives, provoking thereby the chaos into which you are sinking. But when humanity is obedient to the laws that govern life, all will return to peace, abundance, and happiness. How could your works on earth be perfect when I see you hostile to the very elements of nature from which you take life? My doctrine does not come to prohibit that you use the elements and forces of nature, but comes to regulate and teach you to employ them for worthy ends. The elements of nature in your hands can change from friends and brothers to judges who punish you severely. It is time that men harvest the fruit of experience in order to not further provoke the force of the elements, for with all their science they will not be able to contain them. The tree of science shall be shaken by the fury of the hurricane, and its fruit shall fall upon mankind. And who is it that has unchained the elements if not man? It is well that the first beings knew pain in order to awaken them to reality, to be born to the light of the conscience, and conform themselves to a law. But why do the evolved conscious and developed men of this time dare to profane the tree of life? To those who think that I punish men by unleashing the elements of nature upon them, I say that they commit a grave error in thinking thus, for nature evolves and is transformed, and in its changes or transition upheavals occur that produce suffering to you when you do not comply with the law, though you attribute it to divine punishment. Truly, within it is my justice. Yet if you, privileged beings containing a spark of the divine that illuminates your spirit, lived in harmony with the nature that surrounds you, your spirits would maintain you elevated above its changes, above the force of the elements, and you would not suffer. What is nature, if not a large creature? Yes, disciples, a creature who also evolves, purifies, develops, and perfects itself for the purpose of sheltering the men of tomorrow in its bosom. How many times have you resented its natural transitions for reaching the perfection and attribute it to the punishments of God, not realizing that together with nature and creation, you purify, evolve, and walk toward perfection? My peace be with you. Chapter 26. Other Worlds. The Universal Light of Christ. In that era I told you, I am the light of the world, for I spoke as a man, and because men did not know of anything beyond their small world. Now in the Spirit I tell you, I am the universal light, that which illuminates the life of all worlds, heavens, and dwellings, that illuminates and gives light to all beings and creatures. I am the eternal sower. Even before coming to the earth and being called Jesus by men, I was the sower, already known by those who were beyond the material. The confusion or ignorance, those who inhabit spiritual regions and dwellings that you do not yet know and cannot imagine. From among those who knew me before I came to earth, I sent you many to give testimony in the world about me, to announce the coming of Christ, the love and the word of the Father. Some of them were prophets, others were forerunners, and still others apostles. This is not the only world that has known my passage. Wherever a Redeemer has been necessary, there I have been present. Yet I must tell you that while in other dwellings my cross and cup were taken from me by the regeneration and love of your brothers, here in this world, even after many centuries, you still have me, crowned with thorns and tormented on the cross of your imperfections, drinking always from the cup of gall and vinegar, as my work of love contains redemption for all humanity. I await you with infinite patience. I have conceded not one, but many opportunities to each being for his elevation, and waited through many eras the awakening of all who sleep in profound lethargy. On the ladder of perfection, there are many steps in the spiritual veil, and in the limitless space there are many worlds. And truly I tell you, I have always communicated with all of them, and my manifestation among them has always been according to the world they were in, and their place on the spiritual ladder. While the human creatures argue about my divinity, my existence, and my doctrine, there are worlds where I am loved perfectly. At a moment when some worlds have reached the greatest spiritual cleanliness, your planet, morally and spiritually, lives in a time of great perversity. The spiritual link between the worlds, my divine light shines throughout the universe. You'll find my presence wherever you seek me. I am the Divine Father who works to bring harmony to all of his children on earth and those who dwell in other worlds. Spiritual harmony among all beings will reveal great knowledge. It will provide you with spirit to spirit communication that will cut distances, bring the absent close, and erase borders and boundaries. This humanity will make great strides toward spiritualism. Its spirits can go far beyond human limits and come to the higher dwellings to communicate with their brothers and receive the light that they have to offer. They may also descend to the plains where there dwell and underdeveloped beings of little elevation in order to help them overcome their poor condition and achieve a higher level. The ladder the Spirit ascends to its perfection is very great. On it you will find beings of infinity of gradations, and you will offer them that which you possess, and they in turn will give you something of their spiritual riches. Then you will discover that this is not the only world that struggles for its improvement. You will learn that on all the planets the Spirit evolves, that on all of them it palpitates and grows, fulfilling its destiny, and I wish you to prepare to make alliance with all your brothers, and that you communicate with them with a holy yearning to recognize love and help each other. Do this in my name through your thoughts and within the strictest obedience, and when you start this exercise, you will begin to interpret their petitions and their teachings and benefits. I yearn for you that harmony exists with your brothers on and beyond this planet that is currently your home. Proffer ties of friendship. Ask for help when you need it, and help those who ask for from what you possess. Learn to know other worlds and ways of life. Many times you have asked me what lies beyond this world, and whether those heavenly bodies that spin through space are worlds like yours. My answer to your curiosity has not completely dispelled the veil of mystery, because you do not yet have the degree of evolution necessary to understand, nor the spirituality indispensable to harmonize with other worlds. You have not yet managed to know or understand the teachings that planet you live on offers you, and already you seek other worlds. You have not been able to act as brothers among yourselves, the inhabitants of a single world, and you wish to discover the existence of beings in other dwellings. For now, it should suffice for you to remember that in the second era, I said to you, in my Father's house are many mansions. And now, ratifying those words, I tell you that you are not the only inhabitants of the universe, nor your planet the only one inhabited. To the generations of tomorrow, it shall be given to behold open the gates that lead to other worlds, and they shall have reason to marvel before the Father. Love and goodness, from which charity and peace are derived, shall be the keys that open the doors to the mystery, and so men make a step toward universal harmony. Today you are isolated, confined, and retained, because your selfishness has made you live only for the world, without an ambitions for freedom and the elevation of the spirit. What will become of you, vain men, diminished by your materialism, if before ridding yourselves of your human defects, you were allowed to come to other worlds? What seeds would you sow? Discord, insane ambition, and vanity. In truth, I tell you that to reach that knowledge to which all man aspires, and a revelation that will remove from his mind the questions that torture and intrigue him, man must purify himself much and much, will he have to pray and keep vigil. It will not be science alone that reveals my secrets. It is necessary that yearning to know that be inspired by spiritual love. When the life of man has reflections of spirituality, I tell you, they shall not even have to make an effort to look beyond the world, for at the same time they will be sought out by those who inhabit the higher dwellings places And the purpose of the stars. In your Father's house there are many dwellings, which are the infinite steps of the ladder that leads to perfection. From them the spiritual world descends to manifest itself among you. Many times you have asked me, spirit to spirit, why there are so many stars, and about the planets that shine over your world, and you have asked, Master, are those worlds empty? I tell you, that time has not come for me to tell you outright. When men have reached spirituality, then great revelations will be given to them, and they will be able to communicate with those beings beloved by my divinity. Spirit to spirit, and communication of thoughts between all the brothers will occur. Still, from today forth, know this, all of the worlds are inhabited by my creatures. Nothing is empty. All are blessed gardens cared for by Mary, the divine tenderness. The Holy Spirit will return to speak through your mouths of more elevated lessons, yet unknown to you and to humanity. When beloved people, when there is spirituality in you and consecration in your mission. Look, people, contemplate the sky. Take a good look at it, and you will see that in every star is a promise, a world that awaits you. They are dwellings promised to the children of God, which all of you will come to inhabit, for all of you will know my realm, which was not created only for certain beings, but as a universal home, where all the children of the Lord shall be gathered. My peace be with you. Chapter 27. The Beyond. The knowledge needed about spiritual life. How ignorant of the spiritual teachings I find this humanity, and it is because it has been taught that my law and my doctrine are only a morality that will be of use as an aid, and not as the path that will guide its spirit toward the perfect mansion. The different religions have come sowing a false fear toward spiritual knowledge within the heart of man, which has caused them to flee from my revelations and to be submerged in the confusion of their ignorance, arguing that the spiritual life is a profound mystery. Those who affirm this are lying. All the revelations that God made to men since the beginning of mankind speak of the spiritual existence. It is true that I had not revealed all my teaching to you, because you were not capable of knowing it all until the time arrived. But what the Father has revealed up to now is enough for you to have a complete knowledge of the spiritual life. The spiritual life that is yearned for by many is feared, denied, and even mocked by others. But impassive, it awaits everyone. It is a bosom that shields you, arms that embrace you, the homeland of the Spirit. It is a profound mystery even for the wise, but in my arcanum you can enter as long as the key that you use to open the door is that of love. Heaven and hell. Men have imagined hell as a place of eternal torture, where they believe that all those who have disobeyed my mandates will go. And in the same way, they have created as a hell for great faults. They have imagined another place for lesser faults, as well as one more for those who have done neither right nor wrong. Those who say that in the hereafter there is neither rejoicing nor suffering are not telling the truth. No one is without suffering, nor exempt from rejoicing. Afflictions and joys will always be mixed, as long as the spirit does not attain the supreme peace. Listen, all my people, hell is within the incarnated and discarnated, indwellers of this world and the spiritual realm. Hell is a symbol of great pain, of terrible remorse, of desperation, of suffering and bitterness of those who have sinned greatly. and from those consequences they will be liberated according to the evolution of their spirit towards love. Glory, on the other hand, which symbolizes happiness and true peace, is for those who have withdrawn from earthly passions in order to live in communion with God. Question your conscience, and you will know if you are living in hell, if you are atoning for your faults, or if you are vibrating with the peace of glory. What men call glory or hell are not predetermined places. It is the essence of your deeds, which your spirit gathers when it reaches the spiritual realm. Each one lives his hell, inhabits his world of atonement, or enjoys the happiness which the elevation and harmony with the divine spirit offers. Just as man on earth can create a spiritual peace for himself similar to the peace of my kingdom, he can also, with his perversity, surround himself with an existence like a hell, made of vice, evil, and remorse. In the hereafter, the spirit can also find worlds of darkness, of perversity, of hatred, and vengeance, according to the spirit's degree of confusion, low passions, and desires. But truly I say to you, that the heaven as well as the hell, which men visualize only through earthly figures and images, are no more than different stages of the spirit's evolution. One stage is the highest level of perfection, achieved by a spirit through its evolution and virtue, and the other is a stage where the spirit lives in an abyss of darkness, vices, and confusion. To the virtuous spirit, it makes no difference where it finds itself, for wherever it may be, it will carry within the peace and the love of the Creator. On the other hand, the impure and disturbed spirit can find itself in the best of worlds, but will continue to feel itself burning with remorse until it becomes purified. Do you believe that I, your Father, have created places specifically for the purpose of punishing you, and thus eternally avenging your offenses? How foolish are the men who continue to teach those theories! How is it possible for you to believe that eternal darkness and pain are the destiny awaiting spirits which, though having sinned, will always be children of God? If they need be taught, here is the teacher. If they need love, here is the Father. If they yearn for forgiveness, here is the perfect judge. The one who never seeks me, correcting his faults, will be unable to reach me. But no one will be able to resist my justice nor my trials. You can only reach me when you are pure. Among so many mansions within the house of the Father, there does not exist a single world of darkness. His light is in all of them. However, if the spirits penetrate into them with a veil over their eyes, due to ignorance, how can they be able to behold that splendor? If you ask a blind person here in the world what he sees, he will answer only darkness. It is not that the sunlight does not exist, rather that he is not able to see it. I say to you, during this period, do not accept the idea of hell that humanity has accepted. There is no more hell in this world other than the life that man has created with his wars and hatred. And in the spiritual valley, there is no fire other than the great remorse that the spirit feels when its conscience shows in its errors. Those who in their religious fanaticism only await the punishment of hell in the beyond, while holding that belief, are themselves forging their own hell, for the confusion of the spirit is similar to that of the human mind, but more powerful. You ask, Master, is there salvation for them? I tell you, there is salvation for everyone, but peace and light will come to that spirit when the darkness of the disturbance has gone. Have you ever felt pity for someone whose mental illness makes him see things that do not exist? How much greater would be your sorrow upon seeing those disturbed beings in the beyond as they look into their imaginary hell? Do not tremble before these revelations. On the contrary, enjoy thinking that this word comes to destroy the concept of eternal punishment that you have had and all the interpretations that you have been given of eternal fire in the past. Fire is the symbol of pain, of the regrets and repentance that torment the spirit. Purifying it as gold is purified in the crucible. In that pain is my will, and in my will is love for you. If it were true that fire was what punished human sin, then the bodies of all who have sinned would have to be thrown into the fire here on earth while alive. The dead would not feel it because their bodies never ascend to the spiritual space. Rather, when their mission is concluded, they return to the bowels of the earth where they merge with nature, from which they took life. But if you believe what you call eternal fire is not for the body, but for the spirit, that too is a serious mistake. For in the spiritual realm, there are no material elements, nor does fire act upon the spirit. What is born of matter is matter. What is born of the spirit is spirit. My word does not descend to attack any belief. If someone believes such, they are gravely in error. My word comes to explain the content of all that which has not been duly interpreted, and which therefore has produced confusions that have been transmitted from generation to generation among humanity. What worth would my law and my doctrine have if they were not able to save spirits from error and sin? And what purpose would my coming as a man to the world have had if there were to be many who would be lost forever in endless atonement? Some are motivated to do good works because they are fearful that death might surprise them, having no merit to present to the Lord. Others leave off evil only from fear of dying in sin and having to withstand after this life the eternal torment of hell. How deformed and imperfect is that God, in the form that so many imagine. How unjust, monstrous, and cruel. Together all the sins and crimes that men have committed could not compare with the perversity of the punishment in hell for all eternity, to which, according to them, God condemns his children who sin. Have I not explained to you that the greatest attribute of God is love? Do you not believe then that eternal torment would be the absolute negation of the divine attribute of eternal love? You believe that heaven is a region in the infinite, and that you can get there by means of a sincere repentance of your faults at the hour of your material death, being confident that you will be pardoned at that instant and carried by me to the kingdom of heaven. That is what you believe. But I tell you that heaven is not a place, nor a region, nor even a mansion. Heaven is your elevation and perfection. It is your state of purity. In whom does it lie to permit you to enter heaven? In me, who has always been calling you, or in you, who have always been so slow? Cease limiting the infinite, the divine. Do you not understand that if heaven were as you believe, a mansion, a particular place, then it would not be infinite? It is time that you conceive of the spiritual in a more elevated way, so that although your idea may not encompass all the reality, it will at least come close. The music of heaven. You may have heard that in heaven the angels listen eternally to the divine concert. If you consider that symbolic sense, Be careful to not believe that in glory they listen to music similar to that you are used to on earth. Who believes thusly has fallen into a complete error of materialism. But he who, on hearing of the music of heaven and the joy of the angels hearing it, thinks of the harmony with God in the divine concert, will have arrived at the truth. How can it be that there are some who do not understand this, when in your spirit you bear a note of the universal concert? How can it be that hearing this word there are those who do not understand it, who do not feel it, or who interpret it badly? O beloved children, seek the light in prayer, for you are fragile in your understanding. Ask me in your meditations, for no matter how big your questions from the infinite, I shall know how to answer them. At the same time, I too will question you, so that between the Master and the disciples the light of truth may arise. The celestial music is the presence of God in you, and in the middle of that concert, your note shall vibrate when you have achieved true elevation, which is spiritually beauty. That is the celestial music and the singing of the angels when you know and feel like that. The truth shall shine in your being, and you shall feel that God is in you. Life shall offer you an eternal and divine concert, and in every one of its notes you shall discover a revelation. As yet you have not heard in their perfect harmony the beautiful notes that are at times sweet and other times vibrant. If you do somehow perceive them, they will seem to you like vague notes you cannot manage to bring together. And you will not be able to fully realize the beauty they contain. It is necessary to go beyond the senses, beyond the passions and the shadows of materialism in order to hear the concert of God in your spirit. In my Father's house there are many mansions, dwellings. My work will continue to grow more and more until finally all spirits are unified in the fulfillment of my law, and this dwelling is converted to a world of perfection. Those who inhabit it in that time will feel my love palpitate in all creation, and will continue preparing to inhabit a better world. This dwelling shall be temporary for your spirit. It will go to other regions, to other planes of the beyond, in search of its perfection. Remember that I told you, in my Father's house are many mansions. In this time of greater evolution, in which you understand my teachings better, I have come to tell you, in the house of the Father there are an infinity of mansions. Do not think, therefore, that upon leaving this world you will achieve the maximum level of spiritual elevation. No, disciples, when your time on this planet ends, I will lead you to other dwellings, and in this way I will guide you eternally upon the infinite ladder of your perfection. Trust in me, love me, and you shall be saved. It is impossible that from this world you try to imagine what my kingdom, heaven, or glory are, or how they are. It suffices for you to know that this is a state of perfection of the Spirit, from where it sees, feels, and understands the marvelous life of the Spirit, which you cannot understand or conceive now. I say to you that even the spirits who inhabit higher levels than those where you live do not know the reality of that existence. Do you know what it is to live within the bosom of the Father? When you dwell there, then you will be able to know it. Only a vague presentiment, a slight intuition of that mystery, will briefly cross through your heart as an incentive along your path of evolution. My peace be with you. The Evolutionary Road to Perfection. Chapter 28. Death, Dying, and Awakening in the Beyond. The Immortality of the Spirit. This is the era in which humanity awakens to the beauties of the Spirit, in which it becomes interested in the eternal and asks itself, what will the life that awaits us after death be like? Who, howsoever unbelieving, has not asked if something exists within himself that will survive the material form? Truly I tell you, there are none who do not sense that mystery or meditate in some moment on the unfathomable. Concerning the spiritual life that seems so far and is in reality before your very eyes, some ask, others confuse themselves, and others deny. Some speak, believing they know everything, while others stay silent and wait. Yet so few there are who really know something of the beyond. In the third era, I have left the tomb of the forgotten in which humanity has held me, in order to resurrect humanity, for I am life. No one can die. Even the one who takes his life by his own hand will hear his conscience asking him to account for his lack of faith. My doctrine is not only for giving you strength and tranquility during your passage on earth, it is to teach you to leave this world, to pass the thresholds of the beyond, and enter the eternal mansion. All religions comfort the spirit in its passing through this world, but how little they reveal and prepare you for the journey to the beyond. That is, why many look at death as an ending, not knowing that it is from there that you can see the infinite horizon of true life. Death is only a symbol. Death exists for those who do not achieve knowledge of the truth. For them, death continues as a specter behind, which is either mystery or nothing. It is to you that I say, open your eyes and understand that you also will not die. You will be separated from the material, but that does not mean that you will die. You, like your master, have eternal life. Preparation for the parting from this world. You must understand that you, gifted with a spirit, are the Father's most beloved work in His creation. For in you He deposited essence, attributes, and immortality. Death does not exist for the spirit, not death as you know it, the ceasing of existence. The death of the body cannot be death or an ending for the spirit. It is precisely when the vessel closes its eyes to this world forever that the spirit opens its eyes to a higher life. It is only an instant of transition on the path that leads to perfection. If you have not yet understood it this way, it is because you still love this world much and you will feel closely tied to it. It worries you to abandon this dwelling because you feel that you are the owners of what you possess in it. And there are also those who have a vague foreboding of my divine justice and fear to enter the spiritual veil. Humanity has loved this world too much because its love has been badly directed. How many have succumbed in it because of that? How greatly the spirits have become materialized for that same reason. Only when you have felt death's footsteps near you, when you have been gravely ill and suffering, when you think that you are only a step from the beyond, from that justice that you fear, only in those straits do you make promises and pledges to the Father to love, serve, and obey Him on earth. Men have loved this life so much that when the time comes to depart from earth, they rebel against my will and ignore that I am calling them. They reject the peace of my kingdom and ask the Father for more time on earth in order to continue possessing their temporary riches. Learn to be sensitive so that you will intuitively become aware of the spiritual life Do not be satisfied with your life on earth, which marks the beginning of your spiritual evolution. Because beyond this world there are superior creations. Do not try to reject death when it comes near to you because of my will. Also, you should not seek the man of science attempting to miraculously prolong your existence, thus opposing my will, for you will both weep bitterly over that error. Prepare yourself in this life, and you will have no reason to fear your entry into the beyond. While you are on earth, you should love the things of this world only to the degree that it will help you to fulfill its laws. But you should always be inspired to come to dwell in the elevated spiritual mansions, so that when your spirit separates from its material body, it will not be confused nor tempted by those things that it loved on earth. If it yields, it will become a slave to them and remain in this world, to which it no longer belongs nor can enjoy. Be merciful with yourselves. No one knows when the moment will come in which his spirit will separate from the flesh. No one knows if on the next day his eyes will open to the light. Everyone belongs to the Lord of all creation, and you do not know when you will be called. Remember that not even the hairs on your head belong to you, not even the ground that you tread upon, that you yourselves do not belong to you, that you do not need to have possessions of short duration, since your kingdom is also not of this world. Spiritualize yourselves, and you will possess everything within fairness and in measure according to your needs. And when the moment of your renunciation of this life arrives, you will elevate yourselves full of light to take possession of what belongs to you in the beyond. The passage to another world. At every moment my voice calls you toward the righteous path where peace exists, but your deaf ear has only an instant of sensitivity. Before that voice, that moment is the last one of your life, when agony gives you notice of the near death of the body. Then is when you want to begin your life to correct your faults, to calm down your spirit before the judgment of your conscience, and be able to offer something worthy and meritorious to the Father. If you seek immortality of the spirit, do not fear the arrival of the death that puts an end to human life. Await it prepared. It is under my command, and is therefore always just and opportune, though men often believe otherwise. The seriousness is not in that men die, it is in the spirit lacking light upon leaving the material, and being unable to see the truth. I do not wish the death of the sinner, but his conversion. However, when death becomes necessary either to liberate a spirit or to stop a fall of a man into the abyss, my divine justice cuts the thread of that human existence. Be aware that in the book of your destiny, I have designated the day and the hour when the doors of the hereafter will open, allowing your spirit to enter. Once you have entered, you will see all of your work on earth and all of your past. You should not want at that time to hear voices of complaints and accusations against you, nor those who point to you as responsible for the troubles. Do not halt, thinking that you will never arrive just because the road appears long. Keep moving forward. For a moment you lose your spirit will regret later. Who told you that the objective is in this world? Who has taught you that death is the end, and that you can reach my kingdom at that moment? Death is like a brief dream, after which restored its strength, the spirit awakens to the caress of my light, as to the beginning of a new day for itself. Death is the key that opens the gates of the prison that you find yourselves in by being adhered to the material, and is at the same time the key that opens the doors to eternity. This planet, converted by human imperfections into a veil of atonement, has been a place of captivity and exile for the spirit. Truly I tell you, that life on earth is one step more on the ladder of life. Why do you not understand it in this way in order to take advantage of all your lessons? That is the reason why many must return to it again and again, because they did not understand nor make use of their previous life. It is necessary that you know that because the spirit is to be subjected to a long and sometimes difficult task, it had a vast preparation before being made flesh. However, thanks to that preparation, it is not disturbed by entering into this life. It closes its eyes to the past to open them to a new existence, and in this way, from the first instant, adapts to the world to which it has arrived. How different indeed is the form in which your spirit presents itself before the threshold of the spiritual life, or when it has recently left its body and its world, as it has lacked real preparation for returning to its home. It feels disturbed. The sensations of the material still dominate, and it does not know where to go or what to do. This is because it did not learn that it is also necessary to know how to close the eyes to this world in the last instant, for it is only in this way that it can open them to the spiritual world they had left before, where all its past awaited to be reunited with its new experience and add its new merits to all its previous ones. As he recovers the light, a dense veil clouds his mind. The tenacious influence of all he has left behind inhibits to feel the vibration of his conscience as the shadows fade, allowing him to reintegrate himself to his true essence. There is much confusion and much pain. Will there be any who, upon hearing or reading this message, reject it as useless or false lessons? I tell you that only he who is found in an extreme grade of materialism or blind fanaticism could reject this light without his spirit being moved. Eternal rest, spiritual rest as it is understood and conceived of by your material world, does not exist. The rest awaiting the spirit is activity, multiplication of oneself through doing good while not losing an instant. That is when the spirit rests. Its regrets and sorrows are lightened. It enjoys itself by doing good and rests loving its Creator and its brothers. Truly I tell you, if the spirit were made to remain inactive to rest, in the way that you think of it on earth, the darkness of depression and anguish would overcome it, for the life and light of the Spirit, as well as its greatest happiness, are work, struggle, and unceasing activity. The Spirit that returns from the earth to the spiritual valley, bearing imprinted on it the fatigue of the flesh, and seeks the beyond as a bed to rest. And where it can sink into oblivion in order to wipe away the scars of the struggle, must come to feel itself most unfortunate, and will not encounter either peace or happiness until it awakes from its lethargy, recovers from its error, and rises to the spiritual life, which is, as I have already described, love, work, and continual struggle on the path that leads to perfection. Re-encounters in the beyond. I want you to be men of faith who believe in the spiritual life. If you have seen your brethren depart toward the hereafter, do not feel them distant, nor believe that you have lost them forever. If you wish to be reunited with them, be active, do good, and when you reach the hereafter, there you will find them waiting to teach you to live in that spiritual realm. Who has not felt uneasiness about the life of the hereafter? Who among those who have lost their dear ones in this world has not felt an eagerness to see them again, or at least know where they are? You will know all of this. You will see them again. But you should earn merits now, because it might be that when you leave this earth, you will ask in the spiritual realm, where are those whom you expect to find? And you will be told that you cannot see them, because they are in a higher level. Do not forget that a long time ago I told you that in the house of the Father there are many mansions. The judgment of the Spirit by its own conscience. When the spirit of some great sinner departs from this material life to enter the spiritual valley, it is surprised to discover that hell, as it had once imagined, does not exist, and the fire, of which it was previously told, is nothing more than the essence of its works, harshly judged by its conscience. That eternal judgment and enlightenment which exists in the midst of the darkness that surround the sinner will be more painful than the strongest fire you could have imagined. But it is not a torture prepared beforehand as a punishment for the one who offended me. No, this torture originates when one begins to understand his own mistakes. When the spirit begins to feel great sorrow for having offended the one who created him, and for not having made better use of its time, and of the many gifts it received from its Lord. Do you believe that I should punish those who by their sins offend me, when I know that the sin offends more he who commits it? Do you not see that who the sinner does evil to is himself, and that I will not increase the misfortune he has worked upon himself by punishing him? I merely allow them to see themselves and hear the inexorable voice of their consciences interrogating and answering them, to recover the spiritual memory that in the material form they had lost, and to remember their beginnings, their destiny, and their promises. There in that judgment, they will feel the effects of the fire that exterminates their evil, and that recasts them like gold in a crucible, separating them from that which is harmful or superfluous, and all that is not spiritual. When the spirit stops to listen to the voice and judgment of its conscience, verily I say to you that at that moment it finds itself in my presence. The moment of rest, of serenity, and of clarity does not come to all spirits at the same time. Some readily enter into that self-examination and, in so doing, avoid much grief, for while they awaken to reality and recognize their errors, they prepare themselves and are ready to repair even the last of their bad deeds, while others, blinded, be it by vice, by some resentment, or for having lived an existence of sin, delay coming out of their blindness. Others, more dissatisfied, believing they have been torn from the earth before time, when all smiles upon them, curse and blaspheme, delaying their ability to free themselves from confusion. And like these, there are a great number of cases that know only my wisdom. You shall have to answer for all, and the more evil your works, the more energetic the judgment you shall receive from yourself. For I do not judge you. That is false. It is your own spirit in its lucid state that serves as both your fearful prosecutor and your terrible judge. It is I who defend you against the confusion, and who absolve and save you, because I am the love that purifies and pardons. Think that very soon you will be in spirit, and that which on this earth you have sown will also be what you reap. The passing from this life to the other does not fail to be a strict and severe judgment for the spirit. None escape the judgment, even he who considers himself the worthiest of servants. My will is that from the moment you enter that infinite dwelling place, You cease to feel the anguishes of the earth and begin to feel the sweetness and pleasure of having climbed another step on the path. The final judgment, as interpreted by humanity, is an error. My judgment will not be of an hour nor a day. It has weighed on you for some time. However, I tell you truly that the bodies of the deceased are dead and have returned to integrate themselves in their own nature. For what is of the earth shall return to the earth, just as the spiritual shall seek its dwelling place, which is in my bosom. Yet I tell you also that in your judgment you will be your own judges, for your conscience, knowledge, and intuition will tell you to what point you are worthy and which spiritual dwelling you should inhabit. You will see clearly the road that you must take, for upon receiving the light of my divinity, you shall recognize your acts and judge your own merits. In the spiritual valley, there are many confused and distorted beings. Bear my message and light to them when you enter there. You can practice that form of charity starting now by means of the prayer with which you can establish communication with them. Your voice will resonate in the place where they reside and will make them awaken from their deep slumber. It will make them weep and cleanse themselves with their tears of repentance. In that instant, they will have received a ray of light, for in that moment they will understand their past vanities, their errors, and their sins. How great is the pain of the spirit when the conscience awakens it! How it then humbles itself under the gaze of its supreme judge! How humbly then spring from the intimate depths of its being petitions for forgiveness, promises, and blessings of my name. The Spirit recognizes that it cannot approach the perfection of the Father, and directing its gaze to the earth, where it did not know how to make use of its time and the opportunity for it to come closer to its goal, asked for another period of flesh to atone for its faults and complete unfulfilled missions. Who then performed justice? Was it not the Spirit itself that formulated the judgment? My spirit is a mirror in which you must look at yourselves and which will tell you the state of purity you maintain. When your spirit leaves its human shell and in the sanctuary of the spiritual life recollects in its inner depths to examine its past and the results of it, many of its acts that here in the world had seemed perfect to it, worthy of being presented to the Lord and deserving of some reward, seem small in the instant of that meditation. That spirit will understand that the meaning of many acts that in the world seemed good to it were mere traces of vanity, of false love, of a charity not felt by the heart. Who do you believe has given to the spirit the enlightenment of a perfect judge in order to judge itself? The conscience, which at the hour of justice will seem to glow with a clarity never seen before, will be who tells each one which from its works on earth was good, just, real, and true, as well as what was evil, false, or impure that it sowed along the way. The sanctuary of which I have just told you is that of the conscience, that temple that none may profane, the temple in which God dwells, and from which His voice and His light issue. In the world, you have never known how to enter that inner sanctuary, for your human personality always seeks the way to evade that wise voice that speaks inside each man. I tell you that when your spirit puts aside its shell, it will finally be able to stop before the portal of that sanctuary to prepare itself to enter. And before that altar of the Spirit, prostrate itself, listen to itself, Examine its works in the light that comes from the conscience, and hear speaking within itself the voice of God as Father, as Master, and as Judge. No mortal can imagine, in its full solemnity, that moment through which each must pass in order to know what good you bear within, and how to conserve it, and that which you must reject because it cannot be carried any more within the Spirit. When the Spirit feels itself to be in front of its conscience, and the conscience makes itself present with the clarity of truth, that being feels without the strength to hear itself. It wished it had never existed, because in an instant all its life passes before its eyes. What it left behind, what it possessed, and what belonged to it, and that for which it must now finally account. Disciples, humanity, prepare yourselves in this life for that instant, so that when your spirit presents itself at the threshold of the temple of the conscience, you do not make of that temple a courtroom, for the spiritual pain would be so great that there is no physical pain comparable. I wish you to meditate on what I have said to you in this teaching, so that you understand how your judgment is carried out in the spiritual realm. In this way, you will vanquish the image that exists in your imagination of a courtroom presided over by God in the form of an old man, placing on his right his good children, so that they may enjoy heaven, and to his left the bad ones, so that they may be condemned to eternal punishment. It is time already that the light comes to the highest part of your spirit and your understanding, so that the truth may shine in each man, and he be prepared to enter the spiritual life with dignity. The spiritual conscience recovered. There is nothing in my creation like bodily death to show each spirit the height it reached during its life, nor anything like my word for ascending to perfection. There you have the reason why my law and doctrine insist time and again in penetrating the hearts, and why the pain and the vicissitudes come counseling men to flee from the paths that instead of raising them up, lead the spirit to the abyss. How fortunate your spirit will feel in the beyond if your conscience tells you that on earth you sowed the seed of love. All the past will make itself present before your eyes, and every image of your works will give you infinite pleasure. The precepts of my law, which your memory has not always known how to retain, will also pass through your spirit, full of clarity and light. Earn merits that will permit you to penetrate the unknown with your eyes open to truth. There are many mysteries that men have tried in vain to explain. Neither human intuition nor human science have been able to satisfy many of the questions asked by men. And the reason is that there is knowledge that is reserved only to the Spirit, that has penetrated to the veil of spirits. Those surprises that await it, those wonders, those revelations shall be part of its prize. Yet truly I tell you, if a spirit comes to the spiritual world with a blindfold over its eyes, it will see nothing and continue to see before it only mysteries where all should be clarity. This celestial doctrine that I bring you reveals many beauties and prepares you so that when you present yourself in spirit before the justice of the eternal, you know how to confront the marvelous reality that will surround you from that instant. Receive my light so that it illuminates the road of your existence, and in the hour of your death frees you from confusion. And in an instant, as soon as you pass the portals of the beyond, you will know who you are, who you have been, and who you will be, while your bodies, which even after that continue to give nutriment and life, sink into the earth into whose bosom they will be integrated to increase its fruitfulness. Your conscience, which is over your being, shall not remain in the earth, but shall accompany the Spirit and be shown to it like a book whose profound and wise lessons are to be studied by it. There your spiritual eyes shall open to the truth, and in an instant you will know how to interpret that which in an entire life you did not manage to understand. Then is when you will understand what it means to be a child of God and brother to your fellow men. That is when you will understand the value of all that you have possessed and feel sorrow and repentance for the errors made, for the time lost, and the most beautiful purposes of reform and reparation will be born in you. From now on, you all travel toward the same end, reconciling and harmonizing your spiritual lives. Let none believe that they travel a better path than their brother, nor that they are on a higher rung of the ladder than others. I tell you, at the supreme hour of death, it shall be my voice that tells you the truth concerning your elevation. During that brief moment of illumination before the conscience is where many receive their reward, but also where many see their greatness fade away. Do you desire to save yourselves? Come to me on the road of brotherliness. It is the only one. There is no other. It is the one marked by the maxim, love one another. My peace be with you. Chapter 29, Purification and Ascension of the Spirits in the Beyond. Remorse, repentance, and self-incrimination. I do not wish that your spirit be stained, nor that you die to the true life. That is why I touch you with my justice, when I find you indulging in unhealthy enjoyments and pleasures. Your spirit must arrive clean to my bosom, the way it was when it left it. All who leave a body in the bowels of the earth, and leave this world in a state of confusion, upon beholding my presence manifested in the light of the infinite that illuminates the consciences, awaken from their profound sleep, weeping and with desperate remorse. While the pain of the child freeing itself from its sorrows continues, the father also suffers. Remorse and torture from lack of wisdom, and suffering for lack of the spirituality necessary to enjoy that life, these and more are present in the expiation of the spirits that come stained or without preparation to the threshold of the spiritual life. Do you see how I cannot take sin, imperfections, or the perversity of men as offenses against the Father, knowing that the evil done by men is to themselves? How luminous would your lives be, and how great the advance of your sciences if you loved your neighbors and did the will of your Father, if you would sacrifice something of your free will and work in accord with the dictates of your conscience. Your science would then touch the superhuman upon surpassing the limits of the material world, for as of this moment it has not yet approached those limits. What surprise the spirit of the scientist feels when it abandons this world and comes to present itself before the divine truth. There he bows his head in shame, praying that his pride be forgiven. He believed he knew all and could do all, and denied the existence of anything beyond his knowledge or comprehension. However, upon finding himself in front of the book of life, before the infinite work of the Creator, he must recognize his smallness and cover himself in humility before He who is absolute wisdom. Do not fear, thinking of all your earthly sins, to come to the spiritual valley. If you allow the pain to cleanse you, that repentance surge forth in your heart, and if you struggle to repair your faults, you will arrive clean and worthy before my presence, and none, not even your conscience, shall dare to mention your past imperfections. In the perfect mansion there is for each spirit a place that waits in time. or in eternity, the arrival of its possessor. One by one, you shall come to my kingdom on the ladder of love, charity, faith, and merit. Compensating justice. Few disciples I have had in this world, and even less in number the ones who have been like the image of the Divine Master. In the spiritual realm, I have many disciples, for that is where there is more advancement within the study of my teachings. That is where my beginners, those who thirst and hunger for love, receive from their Master what mankind denied them. That is where those who were ignored on earth on account of their humility glow because of their virtue, and where those who glowed with false enlightenment in this world weep with sadness and repentance. In the hereafter is where I welcome you in a manner that you did not expect on earth. When you restitute tearfully by praising me, it does not matter that along your journey you had a moment of desperation. I will take into account that you had days of great distress, and that in them you demonstrated resignation and you blessed my name. You too, in your smallness, have experienced some calvaries, although these were caused by your disobedience. Behold, that for a few moments of fidelity and love for God, you obtain times of life and grace in the hereafter. In that way, my eternal love responds to the temporary love of man. Every good deed will have its reward, which will not be received on earth, but in the beyond. But how many of you would like to enjoy that glory here on earth, unaware that he who does not work toward his spiritual life will be without merits on entering it, and his repentance will be great? He who goes about seeking the honors and praise of the world shall have them here, but they will be of short duration and will serve him for nothing the day of his entry to the spiritual world. He who seeks money shall have his reward here, for that was what he sought. But when the time comes to leave it all here, to present himself in the beyond, he will have no right to claim compensation for his spirit, though he may believe he has done much for charity. In contrast, he who has always renounced the praise and favors, and who has renounced all material prizes, being busy sowing goodness, and who enjoys performing charity, is not thinking of prizes because he does not live for his own satisfaction, but for that of his fellow men. How great will be his peace and happiness when he is in the bosom of his Lord. During this period, I have come to bring you a teaching that is pure and perfect. Thus I say to you that at the end of your journey, only the true deeds of love that you practice will be accepted, because it will demonstrate that you knew the truth. Although you might not know the value of a good deed while doing it, do not think that you will never become aware of the good you have done. I say to you that each one of your works will be rewarded. You shall see when you are in the spiritual kingdom how many times a small act, in appearance of little importance, has been the beginning of a chain of benefits, a chain that others went on lengthening, but which ends up always to the satisfaction of he who initiated it. I inspire you to earn merit, not for you to be moved by selfish interest in your own salvation, but for you to act thinking of your brothers and in generations yet to come, whose pleasure will be great when they find the road prepared by those who went first. Then your happiness will be infinite, for the gladness and peace of your brothers shall reach your own spirits. How different from those who seek only their own salvation and happiness, for they, on arriving to the place they have prepared by their works, cannot have an instant of peace or happiness contemplating those who remain behind, bearing the heavy burden of their suffering. Truly I tell you that the true disciples of this doctrine practice deeds of love that are just and pure. As in their is their conscience, which is my own light. If you behave with humility, your spiritual wealth will grow in the life that awaits you. then you shall have peace that gives you the most beautiful sensation of your existence, and in your spirit the desire to serve the Father by being a faithful guardian of all created by me, and by being a consolation for those who suffer, and peace for those who feel no tranquility. The ascension of spirits to the kingdom of God. This is the third era, in which your spirit from the earth may begin to dream of great knowledge and higher dwelling places. For he who upon departing this world bears in his spirit the knowledge of what he will find, and the development of his spiritual gifts, shall pass through many worlds without stopping in them, until arriving to that which through his merits it corresponds to him to inhabit. He shall be plainly conscious of his spiritual state, know how to carry out his mission wherever he finds himself, know the language of love, harmony, and justice, and know how to communicate with the purity of spiritual language that is taught. There shall be no dangerous obstacles, confusion, nor mourning, and he shall begin to live the supreme pleasure of coming closer to the mansions that belong to him because they belong to the eternal inheritance. On the divine ladder, there is an infinite number of beings whose spiritual perfection allows them to occupy different steps according to the grade of evolution which they have reached. Your spirits were created with sufficient attributes to evolve along that ladder of perfection and to reach a certain level of evolution according to the divine designs of the Creator. You do not know the destiny of those spirits, but I say to you that it is perfect, like everything created by me. You still do not understand the gifts that the Father gave to you, but do not fear, because later you will become aware of them and will see them fully manifested. The infinite number of spirits, which like yours reside in different dwellings, find themselves united by a superior force, which is that of love. They were created for struggle, for their elevation, not for immobility. Those who have obeyed my mandates have come to be great in divine love. Nevertheless, I remind you that even though your spirits may have reached greatness, power, and wisdom, they will not come to the omnipotent since their attributes are not infinite as they are in God. However, they will suffice to take you to the peak of your perfection, along the straight path which the love of your Creator traced for you from the first instant. Your spirit shall have to pass 7 spiritual stages to reach its perfection. Today, while living on the earth, you do not know on what step of the ladder you find yourselves. Although I know the answer to that question from your spirit, I must not tell you the answer now. Each stair, each rung, each mansion offers greater light and more perfect joy to the spirit, but supreme peace and the perfect happiness of the spirit are beyond the fleeting dwellings of the spirits. How many times will you believe you feel perfect happiness within the bosom of God, not realizing that this happiness is merely the promise of the next world, to which you will pass after this life? How many there are who dream of dying with the hope that it will be the moment when they arrive before me to adore me eternally in heaven, not realizing that the road is infinitely longer than they have been able to believe. To ascend one rung on the ladder that leads to me, it is necessary to have known how to live a human life. Ignorance is what causes many to confuse the essence of my lessons. Because of man, the elements of destruction have been unleashed, and war has sown its seed in every heart. Oh, how much pain humanity has felt, how much desolation, misery, abandonment, and mourning they have left in their path. Do you believe that the spirits of those who have fallen in the battle perished, or that the part of life of eternity that inhabits men has ceased to exist? No, people, the spirit survives war and death. That part of my own spirit rises from the fields of pain and seeks on my road a new horizon to continue living, developing, and evolving. I have given the earth to you to possess equally, to live on in peace, and take as a temporal home in which you will develop your gifts and prepare your spirit to ascend to its new dwelling place. I said to you, in the house of the Lord there are many mansions. You will know them as you ascend. Each ascending grade will bring you closer to me, and will be reached by you according to your works, for all is subject to a divine order and justice. No one may impede your passing from one step to the next, and at the end of each one of them, there will be rejoicing and celebration in your spirit, and also in mine. In this way, I prepare you to know that the road that you must take is long. Do not be satisfied with your first works, believing that they will open the gates to those mansions. Also, I tell you, it is beautiful and satisfying for a spirit to come to the end of a stage and stop to look back at the road already traveled, its great struggles, its days of bitterness, and the hours of peace after overcoming the numerous obstacles. And finally, the triumph, the compensation, and justice glowing around you, and the Spirit of your Father, present and glorious, blessing his Son, bringing him to rest in his bosom while he is being prepared for the next step, and thus passing from one to the other, until finally you arrive at the highest fulfillment to reside eternally in me. The spark that makes man similar to his Creator, shall come ever closer to the infinite flame from which it sprang, and a flash of light shall be luminous, conscientious, being vibrant with love, full of wisdom and strength. That being shall enjoy the state of perfection, in which there is not even a smallest pain or most minor misery, but perfect and true happiness. If this were not the destiny of your spirit, truly I tell you that I would never have given you to know my doctrine through so many lessons, for the law of the first era would have been sufficient for you to live in peace on earth. Yet if you meditate on the fact that I came to live among men and promised them an infinitely better world beyond this life, and if additionally you remember that I promised to return in another era to continue speaking and to explain to you all that you did not understand, you will finally understand that the spiritual destination of men is much higher than you are able to imagine, and that the happiness promised is infinitely greater than you can imagine or foresee. My peace be with you. Chapter 30, the development of the Spirit through reincarnations. The law of evolution. I say to you that it is necessary for humanity to know that its spirit has come many times to earth, and that still they have not been able to arise along the pathway of my law in order to reach the summit of the mountain. Why, if humanity has seen the development of science and the discovery of things they would not have believed earlier, does it resist the natural evolution of the spirit? Why are they obstinate in what makes them remain stationary and lethargic? Why have they not wished to glimpse eternal life? Understand that although creation appears to have been completed, all things continue to evolve, transform, and become more perfect. Could your spirit escape the divine law? No, my children, no one can say the last word about the spiritual, about science, or about life, for they are works of mine, which have no ending. How many men, based on the knowledge they have achieved, believe themselves to have greatness of spirit, but to me are like some children standing still on the road to their evolution. They should realize that it is not only through the development of the mind that the elevation of the spirit is achieved, but through the all around development of their being. And there are many gifts needed to evolve in order to achieve completeness. That is why I instituted a reincarnation of the Spirit as one of my laws of love and justice, in order to provide it with a longer road that would give it the opportunities necessary to achieve its perfection. Each existence is only a brief lesson, since otherwise the opportunity for man to include in it the fulfillment of all my law would be very short. However, it is necessary that you understand the meaning of this life in order to take form from it its essence and to achieve its harmony, which is the basis of human perfection. Then you will be able to pass to a higher plane until you arrive to the spiritual life. There I have kept many lessons that I must teach you, and many revelations that I must still make to you. Why is it that, while all things grow unceasingly transform, develop, and become more perfect, your spirit alone remains stagnant throughout the centuries? Since you have discovered and learned much through the sciences, you do not ignore the incessant evolution that exists in all the beings of creation. I wish you to understand that you must not leave your spirit abandoned to that backwardness and in the stagnation into which you have kept it for so long, and that you must struggle to achieve harmony with all that surrounds you, so that the day might come when nature, instead of hiding its secrets, reveals them, and the elements, instead of being hostile, become your servants, collaborators, and brothers. The resurrection of the flesh, properly understood. Now the world will know the truth about the resurrection of the flesh, which is the reincarnation of the spirit. Reincarnate, to return to the material world to be born again as a man, the emergence of the spirit in a human body for the continuation of a mission. That is the truth about the resurrection of the flesh, of which your elders have spoken, giving it interpretations that were as twisted as they were absurd. Reincarnation is a gift that God has conceded to your spirit so that it is never limited by the smallness of the material form, by its ephemeral existence on the earth, or by its natural weaknesses, but rather because the spirit proceeds from a superior nature. It may use as many material forms as are necessary for carrying out its great missions in the world. Through this gift, the Spirit demonstrates its immense superiority over the flesh, over death, and over all that is earthly, defeating death, surviving from one body to another, to as many as may be entrusted to it, the conqueror of time, obstacles, and temptations. How could you ever believe that on the day of judgment the bodies of the dead will be resurrected and be united to their spirits in order to enter the kingdom of God? How can you interpret in that manner what you were taught in former times? The flesh is of this world, and here it remains, while the spirit arises free and returns to the existence from where it emerged. That which is born of the flesh is flesh. That which is born of my spirit is spirit. The resurrection of the flesh is the reincarnation of the spirit. And if some believe that to be a human theory, and others believe it to be a new revelation, verily I say to you, that I began to make it known to the world since the beginning of mankind. Proof of it you can find in the texts of the scriptures, which are a testimony of my works. However, during this era, the revelation has reached your spirit in a greater level of evolution. Soon it will be justly regarded as one of the most rightful and loving laws of the Creator. Disregard the belief that you had about the day of judgment, which is not a day like yours, because it is a period, and the end of the world is not the end of the planet where you live, but of the egotistical life you have created on it. The mystery of the resurrection of the flesh has been clarified by the revelation of the reincarnation of the Spirit. Today you realize that the goal of this law of love and justice is for the perfection of the Spirit, so that it will never be lost, because it will always find an open door as an opportunity which the Father offers for its salvation. My judgment for every spirit by reason of this law is perfect and inexorable. Only I know how to judge you, for each destiny is incomprehensible to men. Thus no one is censured or exposed before the others. And after losing themselves in sin from so many struggles and vicissitudes and much wandering, the spirits will come before me filled with wisdom through their experience, purified by pain, elevated by their merits, weary from their long pilgrimage, but simple and joyful as children. The differentiated state of the development of the spirits has been long a while since your spirit emanated from me. Nevertheless, not everyone has progressed in the same way along the spiritual path. All destinies are different, although they lead you toward the same goal. To some are reserved, some ordeals, and to others different ones. One child travels one path, and another will follow a different course. Neither have all of you emerged to this existence at the same instant, nor will you return at the same moment. Some travel ahead, and others behind, but the goal awaits everyone. No one knows who is near, nor who is distant, because you are still small to have this knowledge. You are human, and your vanity would lead you astray. At all times, even the remotest of human history, you have had examples of men of elevated spirit. How do you explain to yourselves the fact that there have been men with evolved spirits since the earliest times, if before they had not passed through successive reincarnations that helped them to elevate themselves? It is because the spirit is not born at the same time as the shell, nor did the beginning of humanity coincide with that of the spirit. Truly, I tell you, not a single spirit has ever come to this world without having existed first in the beyond. And who among you can measure or know the time that he has lived in another mansions before coming to dwell on the earth? The knowledge of previous earthly lives and of your own development. While the spirit is united with the material body, it is unaware of the merits it has achieved in past lives. However, it does know that it possesses eternal life and that it will continually evolve in pursuit of summit, but is presently unaware of what level it has reached. Your mind does not receive the past impressions or memories of your spirit because the material is like a thick veil that does not permit entry into the spirit's life. What mind could receive the images and impressions that the spirit has gathered in the trajectory of its past? What intelligence could coordinate with human ideas that which is incomprehensible? For all these reasons, until now I have not permitted you to know who you are spiritually, nor what your past has been. All my works have been written to me in a book entitled Life. The number of pages is uncountable. Its wisdom is infinite, and other than by God, who is the author, it may not be obtained by anyone. But there on every page is written a limited summary in which the Father has delineated every one of his works in order to place it within reach of every understanding. You too are writing the book of your life, in which are written all of your works and each one of your steps on the long road of evolution. That book will be written in your conscience, and it will be the light of knowledge an experience with which tomorrow you will illuminate the paths of your younger brothers. You cannot yet present your book to anyone, because even you do not know its contents, but soon there will be light in your being, and you will be able to show your brothers the pages that tell of your development, your restitution, and your experiences. You will then be an open book for humanity. Blessed are those who take possession of their mission. They will feel themselves ascending to the ladder that Jacob saw in his dreams, which is the spiritual road that leads beings to the presence of the Creator. Love is requirement for spiritual development, just as your body requires air, the sun, water, and bread to live, so too the spirit needs the environment, the light, and the sustenance of its own being. When it is deprived of the freedom to elevate itself in search of nourishment, it weakens, withers, and grows dull, like a child made to stay always in its crib and enclosed in its bedroom. Its limbs stiffen, it grows pale, its senses weaken, and its faculties atrophy. See how the spirit can also become paralytic. What if I told you that the world is full of the paralyzed, the blind, the deaf, and ill in spirit? The spirit that lives closed off, without the freedom to develop itself, is a being that does not grow, not in wisdom, nor in strength and virtue. Truly I tell you, that which can elevate you is love, for in it exists wisdom, sentiment, and elevation. Love is a compendium of all the attributes of the divinity, and God has lit that flame in every spiritual creature. How many lessons I have given so that you would learn to love. How many opportunities, lives, and reincarnations the Divine Mercy has provided. The lesson has been repeated as many times as necessary until it is learned. Once it is obeyed, there is no need to repeat the lesson, for it cannot be forgotten. If you learn my lessons quickly, you will no longer have to suffer, nor weep for your errors. A being that takes advantage of the lessons received on earth may return to the world, but each time with more advancement and in better conditions. Between one life and another, there is always a respite, which is necessary to meditate and rest before beginning the new task. Various reasons for the reincarnations. Truly I tell you, that in no epoch of human life has man lacked knowledge of my law, for he has never lacked a glimmer in his spirit, an intuition in his mind, or a presentiment in his heart from the divine spark, which is conscience. Nevertheless, your spirit has turned toward the beyond, wearing a blindfold of darkness. And I tell you that he who does not make use of the lessons contained in the life of this world, this veil of trials, shall have to return to it to finish his restitution, and above all to learn. In other worlds, the spirits also enjoy free will, and they sin and lose the way, or persevere in the good and therefore manage to ascend, just as you do on earth. But at the indicated moment, those destined to come to this world descend to it either to fulfill a noble mission or to atone in restitution. According to their desire to see this earth, it will seem to some a paradise, and to others a hell. That is why, when they understand the mercy of the Father, they see only a marvelous life sowed with blessings and teachings for the Spirit, a road that brings them closer to the promised land. Some leave this world of desiring to return, others do so with the fear of having to. This is because your being has not yet learned to understand the harmony in which you must live with the Lord. Let no one rebel at the idea of having to return to this planet in another body, nor think that reincarnation is a punishment for the spirit. All spirits destined to live on the earth have had to pass through the law of reincarnation in order to achieve their evolution and carry out the mission I have entrusted to them. It is not only the spirits of little elevation that must reincarnate again, the elevated spirits too return time and again until their work is finished. Elijah is the greatest of the prophets that have come to the earth, and in spite of the great works that he did and the great trials that he experienced, he had to return to this world in another time, in another material form, and with another name. This law of love and justice was unknown by humanity for a long time. For if they had known it before, they might have fallen into confusion. Still, the Father made some revelations to you and gave you some signs that were the foregoing light of this time, which is the era of the solution of all the mysteries. The road to perfection. Long is the road by which you shall come to the fullness of light. No being has a longer road than that of the Spirit, which the Father, the divine sculptor who shapes and polishes your spirit, gives perfect form. Truly I tell you that to come to complete cleanliness, your spirit must yet purify itself much in this world and in the spiritual valley. You will return to this planet as many times as necessary, and the more you fail to make use of the opportunities your Father gives you, the longer will be postponed your definitive entry into the true life, and the longer your stay in the vale of tears. In each earthly existence, every spirit must show its advancement and the fruits of its evolution, making a firm step forward each time. Keep in mind that the only good that rebounds to your own benefit is that which is done out of true love and charity for others, and which is done disinterestedly. In man, there are two forces which are always in struggle: his human nature, which is temporary, and his spiritual nature, which is eternal. That eternal being is well aware that very long periods of time will pass for him to be able to reach his spiritual perfection. He anticipates that he will have many existences and that in them he will go through many ordeals before gaining his true happiness. The Spirit foresees that after his tears, pain, and passing many times through bodily death, he will reach the summit which he has always sought in his longing for perfection. On the other hand, the flesh, the weak and small being, weeps, rebels, and sometimes refuses to follow the dictates of the Spirit, and only when the latter has evolved, is strong and experienced in the struggle with the flesh and its surroundings, is it able to dominate the flesh and manifest itself through it. Long is the pilgrimage of the Spirit, extensive his path, many and quite variable his existences, and his ordeals different at every moment. But while he complies with them, he elevates, purifies, and perfects himself. In his passage through life, he is living a trace of light. That is why many times the whims of the flesh are of no concern to the Spirit, for he knows that they are temporary, and that he cannot detain his journey by incidents which he regards as insignificant. Momentarily, he fixes his attention on the weaknesses of his body, but he knows that he cannot love very much something that is short lived and which soon disappears into the bowels of the earth. The universal school of life. Since the beginning of humanity, reincarnation of the Spirit has existed as a law of love and justice, and is one of the forms in which the Father has demonstrated his infinite clemency. Reincarnation is not only of this time, but of all times. but do not think that this mystery has not been revealed before now. From the first times, an intuition has existed in man about the reincarnation of the spirit. Yet this humanity, seeking material sciences and the riches of the world, has allowed itself to be dominated by the passions of the flesh, hardening those senses with which the spiritual is perceived, making itself blind and deaf to that which corresponds to the spirit. Before your creation, you were in me. Later, as a spiritual creature, from a place where all vibrates in perfect harmony, where the essence of life and the source of the true light are found. I come to give you sustenance. Pain was not created by the Father. In the times of which I speak, you had no reason to whimper and had nothing to lament. You felt the glory in yourselves, for in your perfect life you were the symbol of that existence. But when you left that dwelling, I gave vestment to the Spirit, and you descended further and further. Since then, your spirit has been evolving little by little until arriving to the plane it now occupies, where the light of the Father shines. The final destination of every spirit is to unite with God after it becomes purified and attains perfection. That is why I fill your path with enlightenment and give strength to your spirit, so that you may ascend step by step. The mansion that you will inhabit in the spiritual valley will be determined by your level of spiritual elevation when you depart from earth, because the universe was created as a school of perfection for the spirit. If I had given you all in this life, you would not now be wishing to ascend another step, but what you have not achieved in one existence, you seek in another, and what you do not reach in that is promised to you in a higher one, and so it goes on infinitely on the endless road of the spirits. When you hear my word, it seems impossible that your spirit might be capable of reaching such perfection. And I tell you that today you doubt the high destiny of the Spirit because you only look at what you can see with your material eyes, smallness, ignorance, and evil. Yet, that is because the spirit of some is ill, while in others it is paralyzed. There are some who are blind, and yet others who are spiritually dead. Before such spiritual misery, you must doubt the destiny that eternity has reserved for you. Thus you live in this time of materialism and love for the world, yet the light of my truth has come to you to dissipate the darkness of the night of a time that has already passed, announcing by the light of its dawn the arrival of a new era in which the Spirit will receive the illumination of my teaching. Many of you already will not have another opportunity to come to earth to repair your faults. You will not possess that instrument that you have today, which is the body that bears you and on which you depend. It is necessary that you understand that coming to the world is a privilege for the Spirit, never a punishment, and therefore you must make use of this grace. After this life, you will go to other worlds to receive new lessons and there find new opportunities to continue ascending the ladder and perfecting yourselves. If you have completed your obligations as men, you will leave this world with satisfaction for a mission completed, bearing tranquility in your spirit. My voice is calling to the great multitudes, because many spirits are coming to the end of their long pilgrimage on earth. That dejection, that weariness, and that sadness that they bear in their hearts are the evidence that they yearn for a higher dwelling, a better world. Yet it is necessary that in the last phase of their lives on earth, they live in obedience to the dictates of their consciences. So that the track left by their last steps on earth be a blessing for the generations that later come to perform their various missions in the world. This world is not eternal, nor is there any need for it to be. When this dwelling ceases to have the reason it has now to exist, it will disappear. When your spirit no longer needs the lessons that this life gives, because other more elevated lessons await in another world, then with the light acquired in the struggle, it will say, how clearly I understand now that all the vicissitudes of this life were only experiences and lessons that I needed in order to understand better. How long this journey appeared to me in the moments when suffering drained my strength, but now, in contrast, when all is in the past, how brief and fleeting it appears before eternity. Be glad, humanity. Think of yourselves as migrant birds that pass through this world full of tears, poverty, and suffering. Be glad that it is not your eternal dwelling place. Better worlds await you. Thus, when you say farewell to this earth, you will do so without bitterness, and here will remain the cries of pain, the work, and the tears. You'll say goodbye to this world, and rise up to those higher worlds that await you. From there, you will see the earth as a point in space that you remember with love. The power of conviction of the doctrine of reincarnation. Spiritual enlightenment is revealing to the world the truth, the justice, the reason, and the love that exists in the spiritual gift of reincarnation. Nevertheless, in the beginning, the world will fiercely battle this revelation, labeling it as a strange and false doctrine in order to make men of good faith distrust it. The efforts of the religions to maintain their faithful in the routine of old beliefs and methods beyond their time shall be useless and vain, for none can stop the divine light that penetrates to the depths of understanding, awakening the spirit to an era of revelations, of divine confidences, of clarification of doubts and mysteries, and of spiritual liberation. Nor shall any be able to hold back the torrent that forms when humanity rises in search of its liberty, of thought, of the spirit, and of faith. Stages in the reincarnation of a spirit. I am calling all travelers to listen to my voice, which invites them to ascend spiritually and to possess eternal life. In this day in which the divine word makes itself heard, learn from this word and enlighten yourselves with it, for in wisdom is the light and your salvation. If my law teaches you morality, righteousness, and order in all acts of your life, why do you seek adverse paths which bring you pain? And when you depart to the hereafter, leaving your body in the earth, you weep because you have loved that physical body so much. When you feel that the material body no longer belongs to you, and that you must follow the road until you reach me, I have asked you, my child, what gift do you bring me? Have you lived on the earth obeying my mandates? And you are ashamed and dejected because you do not bear a gift of love for the one who loves you so much and has granted you so much. You have created chains which crush your spirit, and having lost its grace, your spirit appears without light, weeping and grieving. It hears the voice of the Father who calls, but since it has not evolved, nor feels worthy of coming to him, it hesitates and waits. Time passes, and once again the Spirit hears that voice. In the midst of its pain, it asks who speaks, and the voice says, awaken. Do you not know from where you have come, nor where you go? Then the Spirit raises its eyes and sees an immense light. Before its splendor, it sees itself insignificant. It recognizes that before being sent to the earth, it had existed and had been loved by the Father, which is from whom the voice came, and who now, upon seeing him in this painful situation, suffers for it. The Spirit knows that it has been sent to different worlds to journey over a difficult path and has to reach its reward through its merits. The child asks, if before being sent to earth I have been your beloved creature, why have I not remained virtuous? Why have I had to descend to suffer and work in order to return to you? The voice replies, all spirits have been submitted to the law of evolution, and on that road the spirit of the Father always protects you, and is pleased by the good deeds of his Son. Truly, I have sent you to earth in order that you might make of it a dwelling of struggle for spiritual perfection, not a valley of war and pain. I have told you to multiply and not be sterile, and when you return to the spiritual valley and do not bring any harvest, you only weep, arriving without the grace with which I have covered you. That is why I send you one more time and tell you, cleanse yourself, seek that which you have lost, and cultivate your elevation. The spirit returns to earth and seeks a small and tender human body in order to rest in it and begin the new journey. It finds the small child designated to it and unites with that body in order to make restitution for its failings within my law, knowing what it must do and aware that it belongs to the Father. The Spirit comes to the earth clearly aware of its mission. In its first years, it is innocent, it preserves its purity, and remains in contact with the spiritual life. Then it begins to know sin. It looks closely at pride, arrogance, and at the rebelliousness of men before the just laws of the Father, and the flesh, which is stubborn by nature, begins to contaminate itself with evil. Having fallen into temptation, it forgets the mission which it brought to earth and arises performing deeds which are contrary to the law. The spirit and material body eat the forbidden fruits, and when they have fallen into the abyss, the last hour surprises them. Once again, the spirit finds itself in the spiritual valley, weary and burdened by the weight of its faults. Then it remembers the voice that spoke to it in another time, which still calls to it, and after much weeping, feeling lost and not knowing who it is, it remembers that it has already been in that place. Then the Father who has created it with so much love appears on its path, asking, who are you? From where do you come and where do you go? The Son recognizes in that voice the word of the one who has given it its existence, intelligence, and gifts, the voice of the Father who always forgives, who purifies and removes the darkness and leads to the light. The child trembles because he knows it is before the judge and speaks, saying, Father, my disobedience and my debts to you are very great, and I cannot aspire to live in your home, for I have no merits. Today, when I return to the spiritual valley, I see that I have only accumulated faults for which I must make restitution. But the loving Father once more points out the way, and once again the Spirit incarnates and forms a part of humanity. Now experience and with greater strength, it then subdues the material body in order to control it and to obey the divine dictates. The battle begins. The Spirit combats the sins which cause man to fall and wants to take advantage of the opportunity which has been granted for its salvation. It struggles from beginning to end, and when the white hairs shine on the temple, and the body which before was strong and healthy begins to slowly stoop under the weight of the years and lose energy, then the spirit feels strong, more developed and experienced. How great and disgusting sin appears to that being! It leaves that sin and reaches the end of its journey. Now it only awaits the moment in which the Father will call it, for it has come to the conclusion that divine law is just. that the will of God is perfect, and that the Father lives in order to give life and salvation to his children. When the last day comes, it feels death in its flesh and has no pain. It departs silently and respectfully. It contemplates itself in the spirit, and as if it had a mirror before it, sees itself as beautiful and radiant with light. Then the voice speaks to it and asks, "Child, where are you going?" And knowing who it is, it approaches the Father, allows His light to invade its being, and speaks thus: "O Creator, O universal love, I have come to you to rest and to give to you the fulfillment of my mission. The account is settled, the spirit is healthy, cleansed and free of the chains of sin, and sees before it the reward which awaited it. Then it feels that it merges with the light of the Father, that its joy is greater, and it contemplates a mansion of peace, a holy land, and a profound silence. Then it remains at rest in the bosom of Abraham. My peace be with you."